There was a woman named Adanna who had a secret. She was born with two private parts, meaning she had two wombs, two cervixes, and two vaginas, a rare difference that made people whisper about her in curiosity and wonder. Some were curious, some were scared, but Adanna was not a witch. She didn't use magic. She was just born different, and that made her a mystery everyone wanted to know about. Adanna had known she was different from a young age, but she never spoke about it. Not to her mother, not to her friends, and certainly not to the men who chased her. She was beautiful, a goddess walking among mortals. Men lost their minds when they saw her. Women envied her confidence. Her skin, as smooth as melted chocolate. Her eyes, dark, hypnotizing, full of secrets. Her body, curves that could make a pastor forget his prayers. At 27, she had it all. Money, power, fame. Men threw themselves at her feet. But she carried a secret, one she had never revealed. Then she met Toby. Toby was not like other men. He did not just want her beauty. He wanted her soul. A self-made millionaire with power and influence. His name alone could make men tremble. Women wanted him. But the moment he saw Adanna, he knew she was the one. Their meeting was electric. A rooftop bar in Lekki Phase 1. The air thick with cigars and jazz, Lagos glittering below them. He leaned in, voice low, dangerous. "You are the most beautiful woman I have ever seen." She had heard those words 1,000 times, but with Toby they felt different. For months he pursued her, lavish gifts, private jet trips, whispered promises. But Adanna had a rule. No man touches her unless he means it. Then one evening, under the city lights, he whispered the words she never expected. "Marry me." Her heart pounded. She wanted to say yes. She wanted to let him in. But fear gripped her. What if he found out? What if he never looked at her the same way again? What if he left, like the others? Still, she forced herself to smile. Yes. She had no idea her life was about to change forever. The honeymoon suite was breathtaking. Red silk sheets, vanilla-scented candles, a bed big enough to get lost in. Toby pulled her close, his fingers tracing slow patterns on her skin. "I have waited for this moment, Adanna." She trembled. For years, she had controlled everything. Her emotions, her reputation, her secret. But now, there was no turning back. His hands moved to the straps of her dress, sliding them down her shoulders. She shut her eyes tightly, praying for a miracle. Then, a sharp intake of breath, a gasp, silence. She opened her eyes. Toby's face was pale, frozen in disbelief. His hands trembled as he stepped back. "Adanna, you have two..." Her heart pounded loudly in her ears. "Two vaginas." The air in the room shifted. The warmth evaporated. Toby stood stiff, his breathing unsteady, his hands hanging by his sides. Adanna's lungs struggled to pull in air. This was her nightmare coming to life. She had known this moment would come. She had imagined it 1,000 times. But nothing could have prepared her for this silence. Toby's eyes darted between her body and the floor, searching for an explanation where there was none. "Adanna, what is this?" His voice was barely above a whisper. Her throat tightened. She had spent her life running from this moment, and now there was nowhere left to run. "It's a medical condition," she forced out. "I was born this way. It's called Uterus Didelphys. 2 wombs, 2 cervixes, 2 vaginas." She watched his face shift. Shock, confusion, disbelief. "You've always been like this?" he muttered, running a hand through his hair. "Yes," she admitted. "I found out when I was 16, but I was too afraid to tell anyone." The silence stretched. She had spent her entire life preparing for this moment. Now, she waited to see if Toby would be the man who stayed or the man who walked away. Morning sunlight streamed through the oversized windows, painting golden streaks across the honeymoon suite. But Adanna felt nothing. She hadn't slept, hadn't moved, had spent the night staring at the ceiling, replaying Toby's reaction over and over again. He had whispered that he loved her, that nothing had changed, that he wasn't leaving. She had wanted to believe him, but deep inside, fear coiled tight. Would he stay when the weight of the truth finally settled in? Her phone buzzed violently on the bedside table, call after call, notifications flooding the screen. She hesitated, then swiped, and her world collapsed. Breaking news. Famous. Lagos Socialite revealed to have two private parts. The shocking truth about Adanna. Her breath hitched. She scrolled, her heart hammering against her ribs. This can't be real. Two what? No way. I knew there was something strange about her. Is she even human? God forbid bad thing. Her husband will never forget her. Lagos men beware. Her hands turned ice cold. Someone had leaked the truth. The world knew, and there was no undoing it. She turned to Toby, her body trembling, holding up the phone like it was a death sentence. Did you tell someone? His brows furrowed. Offense, flashing in his eyes. What? No. Why would I? But Adanna could barely breathe, her vision blurring. Her secret, the one thing she had fought to protect, it was no longer hers. The world was talking, the world was laughing, and there was nothing she could do to stop it. Days passed, then weeks. The scandal did not fade. It grew worse. The more she tried to disappear, the more the world refused to let her. Reporters followed her. Gossip blogs dissected her every move. Talk shows debated whether she was a medical marvel or a curse. She could not step outside without strangers staring, whispering, recording her on their phones. Her life, the life she had fought to build, had become a spectacle. Then, one evening, after yet another headline mocking her existence, she walked into the living room and found Toby packing his bags. She froze in the doorway, her breath catching. "Where are you going?" Her voice was shaky, but he didn't turn around. Silence. Then, in a voice devoid of emotion, he said the words she had feared most. "I can't do this anymore, Adanna." She felt herself shatter. He zipped his suitcase, walked past her, did not look back. And for the first time in her life, Adanna was truly alone. But this was only the beginning, because if there was one thing she knew about Lagos, it never forgets a scandal. The knocking was furious. "Adanna, open this damn door right now." Adanna squeezed her eyes shut. "Go away, chica," but the knocking only grew louder. "If you don't open this door in the next 10 seconds, I swear on my mother's grave, I will break it down." Adanna sighed, dragging herself toward the door, weak, tired, done. The moment it swung open, Chica stormed inside like a hurricane. "What the hell is wrong with you?" she snapped, eyes scanning the apartment, shattered glass, untouched food, curtains drawn like a tomb. Adanna turned away, her voice barely a whisper. "Chica, you just what?" Chica cut her off, stepping in front of her. "You think hiding will make this go away? You think silence will erase you?" Adanna flinched. "You don't understand." Chica grabbed her face, forcing her to look up. "No, you don't understand. The world isn't going to stop talking, but you have a choice." Her grip tightened. "You can let them break you, or you can stand up and make them listen to your story." Adanna blinked. For the first time in weeks, something inside her stirred. She had spent too long letting the world define her. Maybe it was time to take back control. The night was humid, the air thick with city secrets. Adanna stood on her balcony, staring down at the world that had once adored her, then crucified her. Chica's words played in her mind, looping like an unrelenting song. "You can let them break you, or you can make them listen to your story." She inhaled deeply, the weight on her chest lifting ever so slightly. Maybe the world would never forget. Maybe her name would always be tied to whispers and rumors. But for the first time, she didn't care, because she was still here, and if Lagos wanted to talk about her, she would give them something worth talking about. Flashes erupted as Adanna stepped into the TV station, her black silk dress hugging her curves. With effortless confidence. For weeks, she had let the press run wild with their stories, never speaking for herself. Tonight, that changed. She took her seat across from Amara Okafor, Nigeria's most ruthless interviewer. The cameras rolled. "Welcome, Adanna," Amara began, her voice cool. "Everyone wants to know, who is the real Adanna?" Adanna met her gaze, a slow, knowing smile curving her lips. "Let's find out." And just like that, she reclaimed her voice. Within hours, the interview went viral. The world had expected her to cry, to beg, to break. Instead, she had owned her truth. She spoke openly about Uterus Didelphys, breaking the silence for women who had lived in fear, just like her. And to her surprise, people listened. Some still mocked her. Some still judged her. But others supported her. She was no longer just a scandal. She was a survivor, and that was when she met him, Kenechukwu Obi. Tall, dark, dangerous, one of Nigeria's most powerful tech moguls. He had watched the interview, and the moment he saw her, he knew. This was no ordinary woman, and he wanted all of her. For years, Adanna had feared love, judgment, rejection. But across from Keen, in the dim glow of a private restaurant, she felt something foreign. Hope. He spoke about strength, resilience, and the beauty of survival. And for the first time in a long time, she believed him. Maybe her story wasn't over. Maybe this was just the beginning. Gain was nothing like the men before him. He didn't chase her, didn't try to impress her with wealth, didn't see her as a prize. Instead, he studied her with quiet curiosity, as if trying to unravel the woman behind the scandal. "You are an incredible woman, Adanna," he said, his voice calm, unwavering. She raised an eyebrow, swirling the wine in her glass. "Is that so?" "Yes," he said without hesitation. "Not because of your beauty, not because of the rumors, but because you refused to let the world destroy you. No man had ever seen her like this. And for the first time in years, she felt something dangerous, intrigue. Maybe Ken was different. Maybe he was just another liar. But either way, she had to find out. Keen did not chase her. He did not flood her phone with messages. He did not demand her attention. He was simply there. When she needed silence, he gave it. When she needed company, he showed up. When she had nothing to say, he didn't need words. And without even realizing it, she let him in. They talked about everything. But the scandal, books, art, music, dreams she had abandoned long ago. For the first time in years, she felt normal again. But deep inside, a whisper lingered. No man stays forever. And she wasn't sure if she could survive another goodbye. Kine found her on the rooftop, the Lagos skyline shimmering below. "I don't want to be afraid anymore," she said. "I don't want to live in fear of being left." His fingers found hers, warm and steady. "Then don't," he murmured. "With me, you never have to be afraid." And as he pulled her into his arms, she knew. For the first time, she was finally free. Adanna was done hiding. She walked through Lagos, head held high. Her name was still whispered in gossip circles. But now, she didn't care. She and Keen were no longer a secret. They were photographed at business events, seen holding hands at private dinners, trending on social media, this time not as a scandal. Power couple goals, some called them. Keeney standing by Adanna despite her past. "This is a real man," others wrote. But Lagos never forgot, not fully. It was still waiting, waiting for her to fall, waiting for a mistake, waiting for the next scandal. And Adanna knew. Lagos always got what it wanted. Adanna had learned to trust again. She had let herself believe in Keen's love, in his unwavering presence. But one evening, as she scrolled through her messages, an anonymous email landed in her inbox. Subject: "You need to see this." Her fingers hesitated before opening it. Inside there were pictures. Keen, another woman, a dark hotel room, a kiss. Her stomach plunged, her heart raced, her world collapsed. She didn't want to believe it, didn't want to think that after everything he had betrayed her too. But the proof stared back at her, and suddenly she realized the world had been waiting for this moment, waiting for her to fall apart. The air in the penthouse was suffocating. Keen walked in, stopped mid-step. His jaw clenched when he saw them, the pictures scattered across the coffee table like shattered glass. "Adanna, let me explain." Her voice was cold. "Explain what, Keen? Explain why you did exactly what every other man has done?" His face fell, but she didn't want regret. She wanted the truth. "Was I not enough?" she whispered. "You were more than enough," he admitted, voice raw. "But I was weak." She let out a bitter laugh. "You thought you could fix betrayal?" He stepped forward, but she took a step back. "I love you, Adanna." "No." Her eyes were hard, unyielding. "You loved the idea of me. But in the end, just like the rest, you walked away the moment you thought you could get away with it." She exhaled. "Leave, Keen." His shoulders tensed, but he didn't argue. He knew he had lost her. Lagos exploded. "Power couple over. Kenechukwu Obi cheats on Adanna." Adanna's curse strikes again. Another man leaves. She should have felt shattered. She should have felt humiliated. But instead, she felt nothing. For the first time, she understood. It had never been about the men who left. It had always been about her ability to survive them. And she was done letting her worth be measured by a man's loyalty. She packed her bags without hesitation. For too long, Lagos had owned her story. She needed a new beginning, a new city, a new life. She booked a flight to Paris, where no one whispered her name, where no one cared about her past. She stepped onto the plane without looking back. Because she knew if she stayed, Lagos would never let her go. And for the first time, she was ready to be free. Months passed. In Paris, she rebuilt herself. She started a foundation for women with Uterus Didelphys, giving them the courage she had once been denied. She wrote her own story, not the one Lagos had told. And the world listened. She became more than a scandal. She became more than a woman men never forgot. She became a name that inspired. And in the end, she realized something powerful. She had never needed Toby. She had never needed Keen. She had never needed a man to make her whole. She had only ever needed herself. The Eiffel Tower shimmered in the distance, the city humming with life. Adanna sat at a cafe, wine in hand, watching the world move without her name in its mouth. She was alone, but for the first time, she was not lonely. Her phone vibrated beside her. "Toby, I still think about you." "Keen, I made a mistake. Can we talk?" She smiled, not because she wanted them back, not because she missed them, but because she finally understood something they never did. She had never been the woman men couldn't forget. She had been the woman who didn't need them to remember her, because she remembered herself. And that was all that ever truly mattered.